Something has changed inside this younger person, and the change is no longer quiet. Until now, they may have believed they could manage what they felt by staying careful. They could watch without speaking care, without admitting it, and remain close enough to feel connected while keeping enough distance to avoid exposure. They told themselves there was still time. Time to understand you. Time to understand themselves. Time to wait for a sign that would make the risk feel smaller. But that illusion is beginning to collapse. The thought of losing you has started to feel more real than the fear of rejection. They may be noticing that your attention is no longer waiting in the same place. Perhaps you have become quieter, more independent, or less willing to carry an unclear bond. For some of you, another person may simply be showing interest in you, and even the possibility of that is forcing this younger person to confront what they have been avoiding. They are beginning to understand that silence does not keep a connection safe. Sometimes silence is exactly how it disappears. That realization is creating pressure. You may notice them becoming more attentive, checking in unexpectedly, reacting faster to what you post, or finding small reasons to enter your space. Their behavior may seem casual on the surface, but underneath it is a growing question they can no longer dismiss. What happens if they wait, and you choose a life that no longer includes them? Their next move is forming inside that fear. And the first card reveals why it may arrive in a way neither of you expects. The first card is the Fool. The Fool represents a psychological threshold. It is the moment someone reaches the edge of what is familiar and realizes that remaining still may be more dangerous than taking the next step. This is not a promise that everything will unfold perfectly. It is a symbol of uncertainty, vulnerability, and the courage to move before every answer is available. This younger person may be approaching you with exactly that kind of energy. They do not have a flawless plan. They may not know how you will respond. In fact, the cards point towards someone who has imagined so many possible outcomes that their own thoughts have become a maze. They rehearse a message, erase it, rewrite it, and then convince themselves to wait. They imagine asking you a direct question, then soften it into something casual. They think about confessing what they feel, but worry that honesty could change the relationship permanently. Yet the Fool shows that their need to know is becoming stronger than their need to control the outcome. Their next move may therefore feel spontaneous. You could receive a message at an unusual time, a sudden invitation, or a question that appears simple, but opens a much deeper conversation. They may break a period of silence without explaining why. They might become unexpectedly playful, more visible around you, or willing to say something slightly awkward that reveals how nervous they truly are. The action may not be polished. That is part of its meaning. The Fool often reflects someone who steps forward before they feel fully prepared. This person may decide that an imperfect attempt is better than watching the opportunity vanish. Their fear of losing you is beginning to push them out of the safe role of observer and into the uncomfortable position of participant. For some of you, they may test the emotional ground first. They could mention another person to see how you react. They may ask whether you are talking to someone, whether you have plans, or whether you still think about a shared moment. These questions are not necessarily declarations, but they are small leaps. Each one brings them closer to what they truly want to ask. Do I still have a chance? The deeper message of the Fool is that this person is being confronted with their own avoidance. They can continue imagining every possible failure, or they can take one honest step and discover what is actually real. But you are not being asked to rescue them from that decision. You do not need to chase, reassure, or make the path easier for them. The Fool's lesson belongs to the person standing at the edge. Their willingness to step forward will reveal more than any hidden emotion ever could. Watch what they do next. Because if they take this leap, the next question is not whether they feel something. It is whether they possess the emotional courage to build something after the first step has been taken. That question leads directly into the High Priestess, because the pressure behind their leap did not appear without a cause. Something recently changed in the way you carry yourself, and this younger person has noticed. You may not have announced it. You may not have confronted them or demanded an answer. But your energy toward the situation may have become quieter, more selective, and much harder to read. The High Priestess suggests that your silence now feels different to them. Before, they may have interpreted your patience as reassurance. They believed there would always be another opportunity to speak, another moment to come closer, another chance to explain what they had been holding back. But now they sense that you are no longer standing emotionally where they left you. You may still care, but you are not showing that care in the same open or predictable way. That shift has unsettled them. For some of you, the trigger was a stronger boundary. You stopped initiating. You stopped filling the empty spaces in conversations. You became less available to unclear behavior, and instead of asking this person to choose you, began choosing yourself. They may not know exactly what changed, but they can feel that their access to you is no longer automatic. For others, they may have noticed someone else showing interest in you. It may not even be a serious romantic situation. A comment, an invitation, a change in your social life, or the simple possibility that your attention could move elsewhere may have been enough to wake something inside them. They are not only afraid that you will reject them, they are afraid that you will stop thinking about them entirely. The High Priestess reflects what remains unspoken, and this person may now be trying to understand what your silence means. You could notice sudden check-ins that seem to arrive without context. They may ask whether everything is okay, whether you have been busy, or why you seem different lately. The question may sound casual, but underneath it is an attempt to discover how far away you have already moved. You may also notice unusual attention online. They could respond more quickly, revisit something you shared, or react to a post that reveals your independence, confidence, or changing priorities. For some of you, they may try to recreate an old conversation, bringing up a memory that once made them feel close to you. They are searching for confirmation that the bond still has a pulse. But the High Priestess also reminds you not to confuse observation with action. This person may sense your withdrawal. They may feel the door becoming heavier. They may even understand that their hesitation helped create this distance. Yet the next move will reveal whether they truly value you or merely fear becoming irrelevant to you. Because fear can create attention. Only intention creates consistency. Their silence is no longer comfortable, but neither is yours. They cannot easily read your heart now, and that uncertainty is forcing them to confront everything they assumed would remain available. What they have been quietly studying becomes clearer through the Queen of Pentacles. They see that you are becoming more grounded in yourself. You may be less willing to abandon your peace for mixed signals, less impressed by attention that does not lead anywhere, and more careful about where you place your time. This card suggests that your value has become more visible because you are no longer trying to prove it, and this younger person is paying attention. They may notice that your replies have changed. Perhaps you still respond, but you no longer rush. Perhaps your tone remains kind, yet there is a new steadiness in it. You are not offering endless reassurance or trying to pull meaning from every unfinished conversation. What feels like healthy self-protection to you may look like emotional departure to them. That possibility is frightening them. The Queen of Pentacles reflects someone who knows how to create stability without begging another person to participate in it. This person may sense that you are building a life that can continue with or without their decision. You may be focused on your work, your home, your well-being, or the people who show up consistently. The more secure you appear, the more they realize that uncertainty may no longer be enough to keep your attention. They are trying to answer one private question. Has the door already closed? For some of you, they revisit past conversations and search for the moment your tone changed. They remember details you may have forgotten, such as something you once said about loyalty, consistency, or knowing when to walk away. They may compare how openly you respond to them with how naturally you engage with other people. They are looking for evidence. You could receive a harmless-looking message connected to something familiar. They may ask about a place you visited, a plan you once mentioned, or an interest the two of you discussed before. On the surface, it may seem ordinary. Underneath it, they are testing whether the warmth between you is still accessible. But their nervous attention should not be mistaken for emotional growth. Watching you closely does not mean they are ready to meet you where you are. Remembering your preferences does not automatically mean they can provide security. The Queen of Pentacles asks you to notice whether this person respects the life you have created, or whether they only become interested when they fear losing their place inside it. You do not need to reward their uncertainty by becoming easier to reach. Let them show you what they have learned. Their next move is being shaped by every boundary they have noticed, every delayed response they have questioned, and every sign that your world is no longer revolving around their hesitation. They are beginning to understand that you are not waiting in an empty room. You are continuing with your life. And beneath all this watching is a fear even more painful than rejection. Someone else may recognize your value and reach you first. That fear pulls the reading toward the Three of Wands, where imagination begins turning into urgency. This card suggests that they are looking ahead and imagining a future in which you are no longer emotionally available to them. Not because you suddenly stopped caring, but because your life continued while they remained undecided. They can picture you meeting someone who does not hesitate, someone who offers the clarity they kept postponing, and that possibility is making their silence feel much more expensive. For some of you, this younger person has started thinking beyond the next conversation. They are imagining what it would feel like to see you genuinely happy with someone else. They may picture another person becoming the one you call, the one you trust, or the one who receives the warmth they once assumed would remain within reach. That is where jealousy may begin to appear. But the Three of Wands does not necessarily point toward possessiveness. Psychologically, it can reflect insecurity mixed with regret. This person may be realizing that they cannot expect you to wait while they decide whether they are ready. They may understand perhaps for the first time that someone else could offer you the steadiness they have only been thinking about providing. And that realization changes the way they behave. They may ask whether you are seeing anyone, but disguise the question as casual curiosity. They could become more visible when someone else interacts with you, suddenly responding, checking in, or creating a reason to remind you of their presence. For some of you, they may bring up a shared memory, not only because they miss it, but because they want to know whether it still means something to you. They may also begin trying to determine your availability more directly. A simple question about your weekend, your plans, or where you have been could carry a deeper purpose. They are searching for evidence that there is still room for them. But there is an important difference here. Missing you is not the same as being prepared to love you responsibly. A person can fear losing access to your attention and still be unprepared to offer consistency. They can feel jealous and still avoid accountability. They can regret waiting and still struggle to communicate clearly. The Three of Wands shows the distance between wanting a future and actually becoming capable of participating in one. Their next move will expose that difference. If they reach out only when they sense competition, then the action may be driven by panic. But if they approach you with honesty, patience, and a willingness to respect what you need, then fear may be pushing them towards something more mature. The cards do not settle that question yet. What stands out here is that this person no longer sees you as a possibility frozen in place. They see you moving forward. They see the horizon opening around you, and they are beginning to understand that they may become part of your past if they continue standing at a distance. They do not want to become a memory. They want to know whether they can still become a choice. And this is where this pressure begins to change shape. Destiny is not forcing romance, and it is not removing anyone's free will. But circumstances are about to take away the hiding place this person has relied on for far too long. The Page of Swords reveals why that hiding place is becoming impossible to maintain. This card reflects a mind that has been watching, calculating, and delaying while circumstances continue to move. This younger person may still be trying to understand the safest way to approach you, but safety is no longer guaranteed. The situation is beginning to demand an answer before they feel fully prepared to give one. For some of you, the pressure comes from distance. Communication may have slowed, become less predictable, or lost the familiarity it once had. They may notice that you are no longer offering the same openings. You are not carrying every conversation forward. You are not making uncertainty comfortable for them. For others, a boundary may have changed everything. Perhaps you became clear about what you will no longer accept, or your actions quietly showed that you are finished waiting for potential to become effort. The Page of Swords suggests that this person has been studying that change closely, even if they have said very little about it. Time no longer feels endless to them. They may also be facing an upcoming shift they cannot ignore. A change in schedule, location, work, social life, or emotional availability could make casual access to you less likely. Even another person showing interest may be enough to turn a private fear into a visible deadline. This is what destiny represents here. Not a force that guarantees romance, not something that removes your choice or theirs. It is timing meeting consequence. It is the moment when hesitation begins producing results this person does not want. The Page of Swords often reflects someone who wants more information before acting. They may ask indirect questions, check whether you are available, or bring up a topic that allows them to measure your response. They could send a message that seems light, then pay close attention to how quickly you reply, how much warmth you offer, and whether the conversation continues naturally. But information can only take them so far. Eventually, they must choose between revealing something real and watching the relationship change without their participation. They cannot keep gathering clues forever while expecting the opportunity to remain untouched. That is the pressure building around them now. They may retreat if the uncertainty becomes too uncomfortable. The Page of Swords can show nervousness, overthinking, and the temptation to remain behind, words that never become clear. But it can also represent the moment someone finally speaks, because not knowing has become harder than risking an answer. This is the unresolved question. Will the pressure send them back into observation, or will it push them into honest movement? Their next action will begin to answer that. Not through how dramatic it appears, but through how directly they are willing to communicate when the moment arrives. The Four of Swords begins to show what that first move may look like, especially after silence has become emotionally exhausting. This card does not show someone rushing forward without thought. It reflects a person who has spent too much time inside their own mind replaying the situation, imagining your response, and trying to find a way to approach you without making everything worse. They may begin with something simple, a message asking how you have been, a quiet apology for the distance, a comment about something that reminded them of you. For some of you, they may suggest meeting in a way that sounds casual, as though they only want to catch up or clear the air. But beneath that approach is a deeper motive. They want relief from the uncertainty. The Four of Swords suggests that this person is tired of carrying the conversation alone in their imagination. They have rehearsed what they might say, predicted how you might react, and prepared themselves for answers that have not even been given. Their next move may be less about making a dramatic confession and more about finally breaking the mental stalemate. They may admit that they have been thinking about you. They could acknowledge that too much time has passed or say that they did not know how to approach the situation. The wording may be careful because they are still trying to protect themselves. They may reveal one honest piece at a time, then wait to see whether you make it safe for them to continue. The first message may feel almost too ordinary. Do not let that confuse you. The opening line matters less than what happens after you respond. Anyone can send a brief check-in during a moment of fear or loneliness. What will reveal everything is whether they remain present once the conversation becomes real. Do they ask meaningful questions? Do they address the distance instead of pretending it never happened? Do they make an actual plan or disappear again after receiving reassurance that you still care? The Four of Swords can reflect someone who wants peace, but peace can mean different things. They may want to repair what has been left unresolved, or they may only want relief from the fear that they have lost you. That difference will become visible through follow-through. If they ask to meet, watch whether they choose a clear time rather than leaving the invitation vague. If they apologize, notice whether they understand what their silence created. If they admit they have missed you, listen for whether they are also prepared to explain what they want now. Their next move will not reveal everything because the message is perfect. It will reveal everything because they will no longer be able to control your answer. They may hear warmth. They may hear caution. They may discover that you need more than a sudden return. The real test is whether they can remain honest when the response does not immediately remove their fear. And even after they make contact, there is still something they may be tempted to keep hidden. The Six of Cups reveals that the part they struggle to admit may be connected to the past. This card suggests that their casual approach could carry more emotion than they are prepared to admit. They may begin by mentioning something familiar, bringing up an old conversation, or reminding you of a moment the two of you once shared. On the surface, it may sound nostalgic, but underneath that memory is a question they are afraid to ask directly. Do you still feel anything when you think about us? The Six of Cups reflects emotional history and the desire to return to a place that once felt safe. This younger person may remember a time when your attention felt easier to reach, when the connection seemed open, or when they believed there would always be another chance to move closer. Now they are wondering whether that version of the relationship still exists. For some of you, they may check in by asking broad questions about your life. They could ask whether you are happy, whether you have been spending time with anyone new, or whether your priorities have changed. The question may not sound romantic, but they are listening carefully for anything that tells them someone else has entered the space they once occupied. They may also offer an apology without fully naming the wound. They could say they are sorry for being distant, for handling things badly, or for letting too much time pass. But they may avoid explaining why they disappeared, what they were afraid of, or how their silence affected you. They want to acknowledge enough to reopen the door without exposing everything behind it. That is where the tension becomes clearer. They may miss the way you made them feel. They may miss your warmth, your attention, or the sense that you understood them. But missing what existed before is not the same as being ready to create something healthier now. Hidden emotion is not honest communication. The Six of Cups can show genuine affection, but it can also reflect the temptation to return to what is familiar without addressing what made the distance necessary. This person may hope that a shared memory will soften you. They may watch how warmly you respond, whether you continue the conversation, or whether you seem emotionally guarded. They are trying to discover whether the past still gives them access to your present. Their next move will reveal everything, because pressure will make it harder for them to remain inside hints. They may begin with nostalgia, but eventually the conversation will reach the point where memories are no longer enough. You may ask what they truly want. You may name what hurt you, or your boundaries may require them to speak more clearly than they planned. That is the moment they cannot rehearse. They may reach out because they miss you, but will they admit that they are afraid someone else has your heart? Will they acknowledge that their hesitation helped create the distance? Will they take responsibility without asking you to erase the consequences for them? The conversation may begin softly, but it cannot remain there forever. When it stops feeling safe, will they finally tell the whole truth? The Knight of Pentacles tests their courage by asking whether they can stay when honesty becomes uncomfortable. This card suggests that the real test is not whether this younger person can say something emotional in one intense moment. It is whether they can remain steady after the emotion has been spoken. They may receive an opening from you, a calm response, a chance to explain themselves, or a moment when you make it clear that honesty is welcome. But honesty will require more than a hint. They may need to name what they actually want. They may have to admit that fear made them hesitate, that jealousy appeared when they imagined you with someone else, or that they pulled away because the connection felt more serious than they knew how to handle. That is where their old habits may return. They could make a joke to reduce the tension. They may speak in vague language, hoping you will understand what they mean without forcing them to say it. They might change the subject, or offer just enough emotion to keep the conversation open, while still protecting themselves from a direct answer. The temptation to retreat will be strong, but the Knight of Pentacles is not a card of dramatic escape. Psychologically, it reflects the pressure to slow down, take responsibility, and prove intention through consistent behavior. This person may realize that one message cannot repair a pattern. One apology cannot erase months of confusion. One vulnerable moment does not automatically create trust. They will have to stay. For some of you, this may look like them finally admitting that they want to see where the relationship can go. They may acknowledge that they should have spoken sooner. They could admit that watching you become more distant frightened them without blaming you for continuing with your life. That distinction matters. You should not have to complete their sentences, interpret partial confessions, or turn small signs into promises they never made. You are not responsible for translating emotional crumbs into commitment. If this person wants a place in your life, they must communicate in a way that does not require you to do all the emotional work. The Knight of Pentacles asks you to watch what follows the confession. Do they return when the conversation is no longer charged with fear? Do they make the plan they mentioned? Do they become more reliable? Or do they relax the moment they know you still care? Their next move will reveal whether fear has matured into courage or merely become panic. Panic reaches quickly for reassurance. Courage accepts that trust may need to be rebuilt slowly. This younger person may be standing between those two responses now. They can retreat into the familiar safety of uncertainty, or they can make a direct statement, accept your boundaries, and begin showing that their interest has weight beyond one emotional exchange. The choice is becoming harder to delay. The Ten of Pentacles reveals the realization that has finally made silence impossible for them to justify. This younger person is beginning to understand that they are not only at risk of losing a conversation with you, they may be losing the possibility of becoming part of the life you are building. That difference changes everything. The Ten of Pentacles reflects stability, belonging, and the question of what can actually last. Psychologically, this card suggests that their attention is moving beyond the immediate fear of rejection. They are thinking about what it would mean to watch you create something meaningful with someone who is willing to show up clearly. They can see that your life is moving toward greater security, and they know uncertainty may not have a place there. This is what destiny is forcing them to confront. It is not forcing you to accept them. It is not promising that the relationship will be restored or that every feeling will be returned. It is forcing this person to recognize the cost of remaining passive while you continue growing without them. Their silence now has consequences. For some of you, their next move may be a direct request to talk. They could ask to see you in person, offer a more complete apology, or finally admit that they do not want the connection to end. The Ten of Pentacles makes a vague check-in less satisfying. It pushes the conversation toward a larger question. What are they actually prepared to build? They may tell you that they have been thinking seriously about the future. They could acknowledge that their hesitation made you feel uncertain or unsupported. For others, the change may appear through behavior before a full confession arrives. They may become more dependable, make a clear plan, or begin contacting you with consistency rather than appearing only when fear becomes intense. That is how you will recognize real movement. They will name their intentions instead of asking you to guess. They will accept responsibility without turning their fear into your burden. They will respect your boundaries even when those boundaries do not immediately reassure them. And after the emotional moment passes, they will continue showing up. Panic wants instant access. Commitment understands that trust takes time. The major shift in this reading is now clear. Their fear is no longer only keeping them frozen. The thought of becoming permanently separate from your future is beginning to push them toward an answer. They know that waiting may soon make the decision for them. So they are approaching a moment when hiding will cost more than honesty. But one question remains. Are they prepared only to confess what they feel? Or are they prepared to participate in the stable relationship they claim to want? The Ten of Pentacles shows the possibility of something lasting, but possibility is not proof. Their next move may open the door, yet what follows will determine whether they came back to build a future or simply to stop themselves from being left behind. The final decision does not belong to fear. It does not belong to destiny. It belongs back in your hands. And the devil brings that final decision into focus by revealing the pattern beneath the intensity. This card does not place the power in fear, obsession, or attachment. It reveals the pattern that must be seen clearly before any decision can become healthy. Psychologically, the devil can reflect the bond someone feels when desire, anxiety, regret, and the need for control become tangled together. This younger person may be terrified to lose you. But fear alone is not love. The reading began with the willingness to take a leap, then moved through silence, observation, uncertainty, and the growing realization that your life would not remain paused. They watched you become more grounded, they noticed your boundaries, they imagined someone else reaching you first, and eventually, the comfort of waiting began to disappear. Now the devil asks you to look beyond the intensity. Their next move may be emotionally charged. They may admit that they could not stop thinking about you, that distance affected them more than they expected, or that the thought of losing you forced them to confront what they had been avoiding. For some of you, the confession may be sincere, but sincerity must still become behavior. This card suggests that the greatest risk is not necessarily that they feel nothing. It is that they may confuse wanting you with being ready for you. They may want relief from jealousy, reassurance that they still matter, or proof that the bond has not completely disappeared. Those desires can create a dramatic return without creating a stable relationship. That is why you do not need to chase the answer. You do not need to pressure them into speaking, decode every message, or place your life on hold while they decide what they can offer. Let the next move belong to them. Let the responsibility remain where it should. Watch what follows. If they speak about the future, do their choices begin moving in that direction? If they apologize, does their behavior show that they understand the impact of the past? If they ask for another chance, do they respect the time and boundaries required to rebuild trust? The devil reminds you that strong attraction can keep two people emotionally attached even when the situation remains unclear. But clarity breaks that cycle. Standards break it. Consistent action breaks it. You are allowed to care without surrendering your judgment. You are allowed to listen without immediately reopening every door. And you are allowed to decide that a confession is only the beginning of the conversation, not the final proof. The title of this reading carries its answer here. Their next move will reveal everything, not because it will be dramatic, but because it will show whether they are trying to build a relationship or simply escape the fear of losing access to you. If these messages help you see the situation more clearly, subscribe to Astral Card Vault and continue trusting what actions reveal over what hope tries to imagine. This person may step forward soon, and when they do, you will not need to guess who they are. Their pattern, their effort, and their consistency will speak for them.